The starship moved slowly through the dark space toward the third planet from the yellow star. Captain Zira looked at the readings on her screen and shook her head. The planet below them was covered in white ice that went on forever. "Another dead world," she said to her crew. "Just like the others we found." Dr. Keth stood beside her, studying the numbers that appeared on the computer. She was the ship's expert on life forms, and she had seen many planets like this one. But something felt different about this place. "The ice is very thick," Keth said. "It covers almost everything. But look at these heat readings. There are warm spots under the ground." The crew of the ship called themselves the Zephyrians. They traveled between stars looking for new worlds and new kinds of life. Their home planet was far away, and they had been traveling for many years. They had found many empty planets, but they always hoped to find something special. "We picked up radio signals from the system many years ago," said Officer Thaw from his station. "But then they stopped. We thought the people here died out." "Captain," Zira nodded. "This happened often. Young civilizations would learn to use radio waves, send messages into space, and then disappear. Sometimes they destroyed themselves with wars. Sometimes their planet became too hot or too cold. This planet looked like it had become too cold. How long has it been frozen?" Zira asked. Keth checked her instruments. The ice formed about 12,000 years ago. Nothing could live on the surface in this cold. The ship moved closer to the planet. Through the windows they could see endless white ice covering the land. There were no lights anywhere, no signs of cities or roads, just ice and more ice. But Dr. Keth kept staring at her readings. Something was wrong with the patterns she saw. The ice was not smooth like it should be. There were shapes under it that looked too regular, too organized. "Captain," she said slowly, "I think we should look closer. These ice formations are strange." "Strange how?" Zira asked. "Look at this area here." Keth pointed to a section on the map. "The ice has straight lines under it. Natural ice does not make straight lines like this." Officer Thaw looked up from his station. "You think there are buildings under there?" "Maybe. But if there are, they were built a long time ago. Nothing has been alive on this planet for thousands of years." Captain Zira thought about this. Their mission was to study dead civilizations and learn from their mistakes. If there were ruins under the ice, they might tell an important story. "We have the equipment to melt the ice," she said. "Should we try it?" Dr. Keth felt excited. "Yes, we could use the heat beams from the ship. Start with a small area and see what we find." The captain gave the order. The ship's powerful heat weapons turned toward the planet, but instead of fighting, they would melt. The beams shot down through the atmosphere and hit the ice in a small area near what used to be a large continent. The ice began to melt quickly. Steam rose up into the cold air as the heat beams did their work. After several hours, they could see dark ground appearing where the ice used to be. "There," said Keth, pointing at the screen. "Do you see those shapes?" The other crew members gathered around to look. In the melted area, they could see the tops of structures poking through the ground. They looked like buildings, but they were covered in dirt and ice. "It will take weeks to melt enough ice to see everything," said Tal. "Then we wait," said Captain Zira. "This could be important. Send a message back to the homeworld. Tell them we found the ruins of another dead civilization." As the days passed, more ice melted away. The crew took turns watching the planet through their telescopes and cameras. Slowly, more shapes appeared in the melted areas. There were definitely buildings down there and roads, and what looked like machines. Dr. Keith spent most of her time studying the pictures they took. The buildings were not very tall, but they looked strong. They were made to last a long time. Some of them had thick walls and small windows, like they were built to keep out cold weather. "These people knew the ice was coming," she told the captain. "Look at how they built their houses. They prepared for winter." "But they still died," Zira said. "The ice was too much for them." After 2 weeks of melting, they had cleared several small areas on the planet. The crew prepared to go down and explore the ruins up close. They put on their protective suits and took tools for digging and measuring. The shuttle landed in the largest melted area. Dr. Keth was the first to step onto the planet's surface. The ground was muddy from all the melted ice and the air was still very cold. But it felt good to be on solid ground after so long in space. The buildings were even more interesting. Up close. They were built with care and skill. The walls were thick and strong. Many of them had metal doors that were still in good condition after thousands of years. "Look at this," called Officer Thaw from near one of the buildings. He was holding a piece of metal that had writing on it. Keth hurried over to see. The writing was in symbols she did not recognize, but it looked organized and complex. "This is definitely from an intelligent species," she said. They had language and writing. As they explored more, they found other interesting things. There were machines that looked like they might have been used for farming. There were pipes that carried water from one place to another. There were even what looked like vehicles, though they were very old and rusty. But the strangest thing they found was a tall metal tower on a hill near the edge of the melted area. It had a pointed top, and what looked like equipment attached to it. "What do you think that is?" asked Thaw. Dr. Keth studied it carefully. "It looks like it might be for communication. See those metal pieces at the top? They look like antennas." They climbed up the hill to get a closer look at the tower. It was tall and strong, built to survive harsh weather. At the base, they found a small building with thick walls and a heavy door. The door was locked but not damaged. Thaw used his tools to open it carefully. Inside, they found something that made them all stop and stare. The room was full of machines and computers. They were old, but they looked like they had been maintained and cared for. There were lights on some of them showing that they still had power. "This equipment is still working," whispered Keth. "But how is that possible?" She looked closer at the machines. They were connected to the tower outside, and they were clearly built for communication. But if the planet had been dead for thousands of years, who was maintaining this equipment? Captain Zira's voice came through their radio from the ship above. "Team, we are picking up some kind of signal from your location. Very weak, but it is definitely artificial." Dr. Keth felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. She looked around the room again, studying every detail. Everything was too clean, too well maintained for a civilization that died out long ago. "Captain," she said into her radio, "I think we need to be very careful. Something is not right here." As they prepared to leave the communication station and return to their shuttle, none of them noticed the small camera in the corner of the room or the red light that blinked once as they walked out the door. 3 months had passed since the alien ship started melting the ice. Dr. Keth spent every day studying the things they found, and each day brought new surprises that did not make sense. The buildings were not as old as they first thought. Some of them had been built only a few hundred years ago, not thousands. The tools and machines they found looked new, like someone had been taking care of them. Most strange of all, they found places where food had been stored in special containers that kept it fresh. "This does not fit with what we know," Keth told Captain Zira as they looked at pictures from the planet. "Dead civilizations do not have fresh food." Officer Thaw had found something even more puzzling. In one of the larger buildings, there were books and papers that showed detailed maps of the planet. But these maps showed the ice covering everything, like someone had drawn them after the Ice Age started. "Look at this," Thaw said, showing them a drawing he found. "This shows where the ice is thickest and where it is thin. Why would dead people need to know about ice?" Dr. Keth studied the drawing carefully. It was very detailed and accurate. Their own instruments showed the same patterns of thick and thin ice that were drawn on this old paper. The most confusing discovery came when they found a large underground room beneath one of the buildings. The room was carved out of solid rock and was much bigger than anything they had seen before. It was filled with seeds, thousands and thousands of different seeds in sealed containers. "These seeds are still good," Keth said after testing them. "They could be planted and would grow. But why would a dying civilization save seeds?" Captain Zira was starting to feel worried. Nothing about this planet made sense. Maybe they knew the ice was coming and tried to prepare for it. "But Captain," said Thaw, "some of these buildings were made after the ice came. Look at the dates we found carved into the walls. Some of them are only 200 years old." That night, as the crew rested on their ship, Dr. Keth could not sleep. She kept thinking about all the strange things they had found. She went to the observation deck and looked down at the planet below. The areas they had melted were now much larger. They had melted ice from several places around the planet, and each place showed the same thing: buildings and tools that were too new, too well maintained for a dead world. As she watched, something caught her eye. In one of the melted areas, there was a small light moving around. It was very faint, but it was definitely there. "Computer, increase magnification on grid 7, she said. The image got larger, and Keth gasped. The light was attached to something that was moving across the ground. It looked like a person carrying a torch or flashlight. "Captain Zira to the observation deck immediately," she called into the ship's communication system. When the captain arrived, Keth showed her what she had seen. But now there were no lights moving around. Everything looked quiet and still. "Are you sure you saw something?" Zira asked. "Yes, I am sure. Something was moving down there with a light." They watched for another hour but saw nothing more. Finally, the captain decided they should get some sleep and investigate more in the morning. But Dr. Keth was too excited to sleep. She went to her laboratory and started looking at all the data they had collected. She spread out maps and pictures and reports trying to find a pattern. After several hours, she found something that made her heart beat faster. The communication tower they had found was not the only one. In each area where they had melted ice, there were similar towers. All of them were still working, and all of them were connected to underground power sources that had been running for a very long time. "Someone has been maintaining these systems," she whispered to herself. The next morning, she showed her discovery to the rest of the crew. Captain Zira looked at the evidence and made a decision. "We need to send a team down to investigate more, carefully. If there are survivors on this planet, we need to know." Dr. Keth volunteered to lead the team. Along with Officer Tal and 2 other crew members, she took the shuttle down to the largest melted area. This time they brought better equipment and planned to stay for several days. They set up a camp near the communication tower and began exploring the area more systematically. What they found was amazing and frightening at the same time. There were tunnels under the ground that connected many of the buildings. The tunnels were clean and dry with electric lights that still worked. In some places they found evidence that people had been living in these tunnels recently. "Look at this," said Tal, showing them a room they found deep underground. The room had beds and tables and cooking equipment. Everything was clean and organized, like someone had just stepped out for a moment. On one of the tables they found papers with writing on them. The writing was in the same symbols they had seen before, but there were also drawings that were easy to understand. The drawing showed the planet covered in ice and then showed it slowly warming up as the ice melted. "These people predicted that the ice would melt," said Keth. "They knew we were coming." In another room, they found something that proved someone had been watching them. There were detailed drawings of their ship, with measurements and notes about its design. There were also drawings of the crew members themselves, showing their faces and the equipment they carried. Officer Tal picked up one of the drawings and stared at it. It showed him standing next to the communication tower, drawn with perfect accuracy. "They have been watching us since we arrived," he said quietly. Dr. Keth felt a mixture of excitement and fear. They had found proof that intelligent life still existed on this planet, but these people had been hiding from them, studying them in secret. "We need to find them," she said. "We need to make contact." They spent the rest of the day exploring more tunnels and rooms. Each new discovery told them more about the people who lived here. They found workshops where tools were made and repaired. They found libraries with thousands of books. They found laboratories with scientific instruments. But most importantly, they found proof that this civilization had not just survived the Ice Age. They had planned for it. In the largest room they discovered, the walls were covered with charts and maps that showed the entire planet. The charts showed how the ice had formed over thousands of years, and how it could be controlled and managed. There were detailed plans for underground cities and systems for growing food without sunlight. "This is incredible," breathed Dr. Keth. They did not just survive the Ice Age, they caused it on purpose. As the sun set on the planet, the exploration team prepared to spend their first night on the surface. They set up their equipment and took turns keeping watch. It was during Officer Tal's watch in the darkest part of the night that they finally made contact. A figure appeared at the edge of their camp, just outside the circle of light from their equipment. It was clearly a person, but dressed in heavy clothes that covered most of their face. "Hello," the figure said in a voice that was definitely intelligent and definitely not afraid. "We have been waiting for you to find us." "Officer," Tal woke the others immediately. Dr. Keth approached the figure slowly, her heart pounding with excitement. "We are explorers from another world. she said. "We came here because we thought this planet was dead." The figure pulled back the hood of their heavy coat, revealing the face of an elderly woman with kind eyes and gray hair. "Dead?" The woman said with a smile. "No, we are not dead. We have been sleeping, waiting for the right time to wake up, and now that time has come." The old woman's name was Elena, and she was not alone. As the sun came up, more people appeared from hidden places around the melted area. They came out of doorways that had looked like solid rock, and from tunnels that the aliens had not found. There were about 20 of them, all dressed in warm clothes that were made from materials the aliens did not recognize. The people looked healthy and strong, not like survivors who had been struggling to live. Elena spoke to Dr. Keith in words that were surprisingly clear. She had learned the alien language by listening to their radio messages, she explained. Her people had been studying the visitors for months ever since their ship appeared in the sky. "You speak our language very well," said Keth, amazed. "We are good at learning languages," Elena replied with a smile. "We have had a long time to practice." She led the alien team to a large flat area near the communication tower. As they walked, Elena explained how her people had survived. "When the climate of our world started to change many thousands of years ago, our ancestors made a difficult choice," she said. "They decided to help the change happen faster, to make the Ice Age come quickly instead of slowly." Dr. Keth stopped, walking. "You made the Ice Age happen on purpose?" "Yes. Our scientists knew that the planet needed time to heal from the damage that early civilization had caused. So they built machines that made the ice come faster, and they prepared places for people to live safely underground." Officer Thaw looked confused. "But why would you want to freeze your whole planet?" Elena pointed to the melted ground around them. "Because we knew that someday the ice would melt again, and when it did, we would have a clean, healthy world to rebuild on." As they reached the flat area, Elena made a signal with her hand. Suddenly, the ground began to move. A large section slid away, revealing a hidden entrance that led down into the earth. "Welcome to New Geneva," Elena said, "one of our underground cities." The aliens followed her down a wide staircase carved from stone. Electric lights lit the way, powered by systems that had been running for hundreds of years. As they went deeper, the staircase opened into a huge underground space. Dr. Keth gasped when she saw what was below. It was a complete city, with streets and buildings and thousands of people. Children played in parks that had been built under artificial suns. Adults worked in gardens where vegetables grew without soil. The air was warm and clean, and everything looked organized and peaceful. "How many people live here?" asked Tal, staring at the amazing sight. "In this city, about 50,000, Elena answered. "There are 12 cities like this around the planet, with a total population of about 2 million people." Captain Zira's voice came through their radio communicators. She had been listening to their conversation from the ship above. 2 million people? Living underground for thousands of years? Elena smiled as she heard the captain's voice. "Not quite thousands of years, Captain Zira. We rotate our populations. Some groups live underground while others sleep in special chambers that slow down aging. Every few hundred years, we switch places." She led them through the streets of the underground city. The buildings were beautiful and functional, built to last for centuries. The people they met were friendly and curious about the alien visitors, but not surprised to see them. "We have been preparing for this day for a very long time," explained Elena as they walked. "We knew that eventually someone from another world would come to investigate our planet." They visited a large building that Elena called the Hall of Knowledge. Inside, there were rooms full of books, computers, and scientific instruments. But what amazed the aliens most were the detailed records of their own civilization that the humans had compiled. "We have been listening to radio signals from space for over 200 years, said a young man named Marcus, who was introduced as the city's chief scientist. "We learned your language, studied your technology, and tracked your exploration of nearby star systems." Dr. Keth looked at charts on the walls that showed the movements of alien ships across many light years of space. "You have been watching us the whole time. We had to know who was coming to our world," Marcus explained. "We needed to be ready for either friends or enemies." Elena led them to another room where the walls were covered with plans and diagrams. These showed designs for machines and buildings that looked more advanced than anything the aliens had seen. "During our long sleep, we have not been idle," Elena said. "We used the time to solve many problems and develop new technologies. We learned to build fusion power plants using ice crystals. We created computer systems that think faster than biological brains. We developed ways to grow any kind of food in any environment." Officer Thaw studied one of the diagrams that showed a machine he did not recognize. "What does this one do?" "That is an atmospheric processor," Marcus answered. "It can change the air of an entire planet in just a few years. We built them to help restore our world after the Ice Age, but they could work on other planets too." "Captain," Zira's voice came through the radio again. "Elena, why are you showing us all of this? Most civilizations keep their advanced technology secret." Elena looked directly at the small camera on Dr. Keith's uniform, knowing the captain could see. "Because we want to join the larger community of intelligent species, Captain. We have been alone for too long." She led them to a final room that took their breath away. It was a huge chamber with a transparent ceiling that looked up through the earth and ice to the sky above. In the center of the room was a detailed model of their solar system, with moving planets and moons. "We have been planning for this moment for generations," Elena said. "We knew that our planet would eventually attract visitors from space. We prepared for different possibilities, explorers like you, traders who wanted to buy and sell, or conquerors who wanted to take our world by force." Marcus activated controls on the model, and it began to show different scenarios. "We have defenses prepared if necessary, but we hope for friendship and cooperation instead." Dr. Keth was overwhelmed by everything she had seen. "Your people accomplished something that no other known civilization has ever done. You survived a planetary disaster by planning for it centuries in advance." "It was not easy," Elena admitted. "Many of our ancestors died during the transition to underground life, but they made the sacrifice so that future generations could have a better world." As they prepared to return to the surface, Elena made an offer that surprised everyone. "Dr. Keth, would you and your crew like to stay and learn more about our civilization? We have much knowledge to share, and we would like to learn about your people as well." Before Keth could answer, alarms began to sound throughout the underground city. Marcus ran to a communication station and began reading messages that appeared on the screen. "Elena," he said with worry in his voice, "our orbital sensors have detected new ships approaching the system. Large ships, military configuration." Elena's expression became serious. "How long before they arrive?" 3 days, maybe 4. Captain Zira's voice came through the radio with urgency. "We are detecting them too. Those are Vorthon ships. They are not explorers like us. They are conquerors who take planets by force." Elena looked at Dr. Keth with determination in her eyes. "Then it seems our peaceful first contact will have to wait. We have prepared for this possibility too." She turned to Marcus. "Send the awakening signal to all 12 cities. It is time for humanity to fully emerge from its long sleep." As alarms continued to sound and people throughout the underground city began moving with purpose, Dr. Keth realized that the greatest surprises were yet to come. The next morning, Dr. Keth woke up to the sound of machines humming deep underground. Elena had given her and the other aliens rooms in the city, and through her window she could see people working everywhere with focused energy. "What is happening?" she asked Marcus when she found him in the Hall of Knowledge. "The awakening," he replied, pointing to screens that showed activity all over the planet. "We are bringing all of our cities to full readiness and waking up the populations that have been sleeping." On the screens, Keth could see amazing things happening. Large sections of ice were melting much faster than their ship's heat beams could manage. Steam rose from dozens of locations around the planet as hidden geothermal systems activated. "How are you melting the ice so quickly?" she asked. Marcus led her to a window that looked down into an even deeper level of the city. Below, she could see massive machines working automatically. "We built heating systems throughout the planet during the Ice Age," he explained. "They tap into the natural heat deep underground and direct it where we need it." Elena joined them, and Keth noticed she was wearing different clothes now. Instead of the simple cold weather gear from yesterday, she wore a uniform that looked both practical and official. "Dr. Keth," Elena said, "there is much more we need to show you before the Vorton ships arrive. Your captain has agreed to help us but she needs to understand what humanity is truly capable of. They took a fast elevator that went even deeper underground. The elevator moved smoothly for several minutes, suggesting they were traveling a very long distance down into the earth. "How deep does this city go?" asked Officer Tal. "This city extends down almost 2 miles, Elena answered. "But the deepest levels are not for living. They are for manufacturing and defense." The elevator stopped, and they stepped out into a space that was larger than anything Keth had imagined possible. It was a vast underground factory where machines built other machines. Robots moved materials from place to place while human technicians supervised the work. "We call this the foundation," said Elena. "It is where we build everything our civilization needs: food production systems, fusion power plants, spacecraft, defensive weapons, and exploration equipment." Marcus showed them a production line where sleek aircraft were being assembled. "These are atmospheric fighters," he said. "They can operate in any kind of weather and can even function in space for short periods." Keth counted at least 50 of the aircraft in various stages of completion. "How many do you have?" "Each city has been producing them for the past 100 years, Elena replied. "We have approximately 2,000 ready for operation, with more being completed every day." They moved to another section of the factory where larger machines were being built. These looked like spacecraft, but with unusual designs that incorporated both advanced technology and robust construction. "These are our orbital defense platforms," explained Marcus. "They can be launched quickly and will protect our planet from attack." Officer Tal examined one of the spacecraft closely. The hull was made from materials he did not recognize, and the weapon systems looked more advanced than anything his own people had developed. "Your technology is more sophisticated than ours," he admitted. Elena smiled. "We had a long time to think and plan. When you only have limited resources, you learn to make every piece of technology as efficient as possible." They continued deeper into the foundation, where Elena showed them the most impressive achievement of the underground civilization. It was a massive computer system that filled an entire cavern, built from crystalline structures that glowed with their own light. "This is our central planning intelligence," said Marcus. "It has been calculating optimal strategies for planetary management, technological development, and defense for over 1,000 years." Dr. Keth stared at the beautiful, glowing crystals. "It is a computer made from ice?" "Not exactly ice," Elena explained. "It is a crystalline matrix that forms naturally at very low temperatures, but with properties that allow quantum processing. We discovered how to grow and program these crystals during the early years of the Ice Age. The computer system was not just for calculations, they learned. It was also a vast library that contained all of human knowledge from before the Ice Age, plus everything they had learned during their underground years. We preserved our entire civilization in this system," said Marcus. "Art, literature, music, science, history, and philosophy. Nothing was lost." Elena led them to a control station where she activated a display that showed the current status of all 12 underground cities. Each city was now fully active, with populations that had been sleeping now awake and working. "How many people are awake now?" asked Keth. "About 8 million, Elena replied. "Our full active population. The rest remain in long-term preservation, keeping our genetic diversity safe and maintaining our cultural knowledge." The display showed that each city specialized in different tasks. Some focused on food production, others on manufacturing, and still others on research and development. But all of them were connected by underground transportation systems that could move people and materials rapidly across the planet. "This is not just survival," realized Dr. Keth. "This is a planned civilization that was designed to emerge stronger than before." "Exactly," said Elena. "Our ancestors knew that merely surviving the Ice Age was not enough. They wanted us to emerge better prepared for whatever challenges we might face." Marcus activated another display that showed detailed plans for rebuilding the surface of the planet. "We have been designing new cities that will work in harmony with the natural environment. Clean energy, sustainable agriculture, and transportation systems that do not damage the ecosystem." But the most impressive revelation came when Elena showed them the genetic records of the human population. During the Ice Age, they had carefully managed their breeding to eliminate hereditary diseases and enhance natural abilities. Each generation has been healthier and more intelligent than the last, she explained. We used the time to perfect our species while we waited for the planet to heal. Officer Thaw looked at the genetic data with amazement. You have been deliberately evolving yourselves. With great care and ethical oversight, Elena emphasized. We never forced changes on anyone, but we made sure that beneficial traits were preserved and harmful ones were eliminated. As they explored more of the Foundation, they discovered that humanity had also been preparing for space exploration. There were designs for interstellar ships, plans for colonies on other planets, and detailed studies of nearby star systems. We always knew that eventually we would want to explore beyond our own world, said Marcus. The Ice Age gave us time to develop the technologies we would need. Elena led them to a final chamber that contained something truly remarkable. It was a complete backup of their entire civilization, stored in crystalline matrices that could survive almost any disaster. If something ever happens to our main population, she explained, this backup contains everything needed to rebuild our species and our culture. Genetic templates, technological specifications, cultural records, and artificial intelligences that can guide the rebuilding process. Dr. Keth was overwhelmed by the scope of humanity's preparation. You have thought of everything. We tried, too, Elena said. Our ancestors learned from the mistakes that led to the original climate crisis. They decided that humanity would never again be caught unprepared for existential threats. As they returned to the upper levels of the city, alarms began sounding again. Marcus quickly checked the communication systems and turned to Elena with urgent news. The Vorthon fleet has arrived earlier than expected. They are already entering our solar system. Elena's expression became grim. How much time do we have? 6 hours until they reach our planet. Elena turned to Dr. Keth. It is time for you to see our final preparation. The one we hope we will never have to use, but which we have been perfecting for centuries. As they hurried toward another elevator that would take them to the surface, Keth realized that humanity's greatest test was about to begin. When they reached the surface, Dr. Keth could hardly believe what she saw. The landscape had changed completely in just a few hours. Where there had been solid ice that morning, now there were green fields and flowing rivers. Cities were rising from the ground like flowers blooming after a long winter. How is this possible? She asked Elena, who was now wearing a military-style uniform and carrying communication equipment. We did not just survive the Ice Age, Elena replied, speaking quickly as people around them prepared for the coming battle. We learned to control it. Every major ice formation on this planet has heating systems built underneath. We can melt it all in a matter of hours if necessary. Captain Zira's voice came through their communicators from the ship above. Elena, we are detecting massive energy signatures from your planet. Our instruments show at least 50 new heat sources activating simultaneously. Those are our city emergence systems, Elena explained. We are bringing our entire civilization to the surface. Marcus ran up to them with a handheld device showing tactical information. The Vorthon fleet consists of 12 heavy cruisers and 48 attack ships. They are demanding that all vessels leave the system immediately so they can begin colonization operations. Elena spoke into her communicator. Captain Zira, we are prepared to offer you and your crew full alliance status if you will help us defend our world. In return, we will share our survival technologies and establish a permanent research partnership. There was a pause before the captain replied. Elena, I need to be honest with you. Our ship has some defensive capabilities, but we are not a military vessel. Against 60 Vorthon ships, we cannot offer much help. Elena smiled grimly. Captain, you may be surprised by what we can accomplish together. She led Dr. Keth to a hilltop where they had a clear view of the surrounding area. As they watched, massive structures began rising from the ground. These were not buildings, but weapon platforms and defensive installations that had been hidden under the ice for centuries. We learned from studying your ship's design, Elena explained. We incorporated your shield technology into our defense systems, but we improved it with our crystalline computing power. In the distance, Keth could see aircraft launching from hidden runways that had been carved into mountainsides. The sleek fighters they had seen being built were now taking to the sky by the hundreds. How many ships do you have? Asked Officer Thaw, watching the impressive display. About 3,000 atmospheric fighters and 500 orbital defense platforms, Marcus answered. Plus the ground-based weapon systems you can see being deployed. Elena activated a communication device that connected her to all the human cities around the planet. This is command central to all cities. Initiate full defensive protocol. All systems are now active. On screens carried by her assistants, they could watch the deployment happening worldwide. Every continent was revealing hidden military installations. The planet that had seemed dead just days ago was now showing itself to be one of the most heavily defended worlds in the galaxy. Captain Zira's voice came through the communicator with amazement in her tone. Elena, our sensors are detecting over 4,000 armed spacecraft launching from your planet. The Vorthans are requesting communication with whoever's in command down there. Put them through, Elena said calmly. A harsh voice filled the communicator, speaking in the Vorthan language. Captain Zira provided translation. They are demanding to know what species is inhabiting this world and why we have not evacuated as ordered. Elena responded in perfect Vorthan, which surprised everyone listening. This is Elena Vasquez speaking. For the human species of Earth, we reject your colonization claim and order you to leave our system immediately. There was silence for several moments before the Vorthan commander replied, his voice filled with anger and disbelief. They are saying, Captain Zira translated, that according to their records this planet was uninhabited and frozen. They claim legal right to colonize it under Galactic Convention 7. Elena's response was cold and clear. Tell them that Earth was never abandoned. We were simply waiting for the right time to emerge, and that time is now. As if to emphasize her point, the final wave of human spacecraft launched from hidden bases. These were larger ships, clearly designed for space combat. They moved into orbital positions with precision that showed years of planning and training. The Vorthan commander's next message was a threat. He gave the humans 1 hour to surrender or face total destruction. Elena turned to Dr. Keth with a serious expression. I want you to understand something important. Humanity does not want war. We have spent thousands of years learning to live in peace with our planet and with each other. But we will not allow anyone to take our world from us. She activated another communication channel. All ships, this is Elena. You are authorized to demonstrate our defensive capabilities. Show them what they are facing. What happened next was unlike anything Dr. Keth had ever seen. The human ships moved in perfect coordination, creating a defensive formation around the planet. Their weapons charged with energy that made space itself seem to shimmer. But instead of attacking, they created a demonstration that left no doubt about their capabilities. Asteroid targets that had been positioned in space were destroyed with such precision and power that the energy discharges could be seen from the planet's surface. Captain Zira's voice was filled with awe. Elena, your weapons technology is far more advanced than anything in the known galaxy. Where did you develop these systems? Necessity and time, Elena replied. When you have limited resources and centuries to work with, you learn to make every invention count. The Vorthan commander's response came quickly. His tone was now much less confident. He wanted to know how many ships the humans could deploy, and what their maximum range capabilities were. Elena's answer was delivered with quiet strength. We have enough ships to defend our world against any threat. Our range capabilities include any location where our people might be threatened. We suggest you reconsider your colonization plans. Marcus showed them tactical displays that revealed the full scope of human preparation. Not only did they have defensive systems around Earth, but they had also been placing monitoring stations and defensive platforms throughout their solar system for the past century. We knew that eventually someone would come who was not friendly, he explained. We prepared accordingly. The standoff continued for 2 hours. The Vorthan ships maintained their position at the edge of the solar system, while their commanders debated their options. Meanwhile, more human ships continued to emerge from the planet until their numbers rivaled the combined fleets of most galactic civilizations. Finally, the Vorthan commander sent a final message. Captain Zira translated with relief in her voice. They are withdrawing from the system. They cite unexpected resistance from advanced indigenous species as their reason for abandoning colonization plans. As the Vorthan ships turned and began moving away from Earth, Elena finally allowed herself to relax. The first test of humanity's emergence from the Ice Age had been passed successfully. Dr. Keth, she said, We would like to invite your people to establish a permanent embassy here on Earth. We have much to learn from each other. Keth looked around at the transformed landscape, where cities now gleamed in the sunlight and spacecraft patrolled the skies. Elena, I think my people will be very interested in that offer. You have accomplished something that no other species in the galaxy has ever managed. And what is that? Elena asked. You turned a planetary disaster into an opportunity for advancement. You emerged from your ice age stronger than you went into it. Elena smiled as she watched children who had lived their entire lives underground, now playing in fields under the open sky. Our ancestors always believed that with enough preparation and determination, any challenge could become an opportunity. As the sun set on this new Earth, Dr. Keth sent her report to the Zephyrian homeworld. It would recommend immediate diplomatic relations with humanity and the establishment of Earth as a protected research world where both species could share their knowledge. The humans had not just survived. They had transformed survival into mastery, and in doing so, they had earned their place among the stars.